Well, the idea about the parental personality, it is brain typing again, though, but it's understanding that often the child is not wired like the coach and is not wired like the parent. For example, I had a little girl that was ranked 189 when she was 11 years old, and her coach was he was very introverted. He was a backcourt player. He was from Brazil. He was a 20-ball rallier. He made little Sarah hit 300 balls in a row before she was allowed to do anything else. And the mom was very steady as well. So the mom played college ball in the 80s. So she loved Jose's approach. I met little Sarah, and Sarah says, I hate tennis. I'm going to drop out. It's so boring. Well, we get into Sarah's brain type, and she has the same brain type as like a Serena Williams or a Pete Sampras, 4 or 5 ball rallier, not a 20-ball rallier. Well, Sarah goes on to train this new methodology of running patterns and plays, closing out the point, within 5 balls. Sarah goes on to be number 1 in California in the 14 and 16s at the same time, and she goes on to play the U.S. Open, adult U.S. Open, by the age of 15. And this is the same girl that wanted to quit. Tennis was the most boring game in the world. So, and how many parents and coaches unknowingly sabotage kids? Kids walk away from our game because we're not training them based on their personality. We're training them based on our personality.
Sure. You mentioned, thanks for elaborating on that, Frank. You mentioned something that, it's a good problem to have, but it's a problem nonetheless, and that is, a parent of a high performer that gets up to a 5-2 lead, but the boredom sets in, or who knows what. And as you mentioned, something's going on an outside court, and then suddenly the 5-2 lead ends up a 5-7 loss for that particular set. How does that happen, and how can that be corrected?
Well, it usually happens because players don't know their script. Just like a Hollywood actress or Hollywood actor, I recommend teaching kids their top 7 patterns. That is their script. And they have to learn to stay on script, even when the going gets tough, or even when the going actually gets boring and easy. And staying on script when things are easy it's tougher for different personalities, like a perceiver. We talked about that a little bit. But the key is we have to educate the kids to control the controllables, focus on what they should be focusing on. And this is part of the emotional side too, but they have to focus on the performance goals of their top 7 patterns, possibly things like attack any ball inside their short ball range, hit high and heavy when the ball's landing deeper than the short ball range, serve to the back end could be something very basic. But what happens is, as we all know, is the kids leave their performance state of mind almost like a TV channel, and they shift to another channel. Now they're getting reckless, they're getting bored, they're not focused. So they have to learn that kind of, it's like emotional control and mental control of stay on script. And this is why I recommend for parents to videotape at least one match every tournament and have the coach sit and watch that match with the player and point out all the actual causes of the errors. Because a lot of times that's the reason why high-performance players win or lose, is that they don't understand the cause of error. And we'll talk about this again in the workshops. It's discussed a lot in championship tennis, but there's 4 causes of errors. There's improper strokes, so bad form, right? There's shot selection, inappropriate shot selection, poor movement and spacing, or bad focus control or emotional control. And, of course, we can't fix the problem until we spot the cause of the problem. And so every kid's a little bit different, but by watching the video, you can look at things like, boy, you're making a lot of errors, and it's all inappropriate shot selection. But most of the time what happens is the kid loses. The parent and the kid, they don't want to talk about it. They go home. The kid goes to more lessons, and then the coach works on fundamental stroke production. Well, what if fundamental stroke production wasn't even the cause of the error? What if it was bad emotional control and bad movement and spacing? So closing out those 5-2 leads, it kind of gets a little bit deep as far as understanding what are the causes? So I would start there.
Sure. Couple more questions before we talk a little bit more about what you're going to be doing here in the Southwest. And a big question for a lot of parents, is how do we look to attract a college scholarship for our son or daughter?
Well, that's a great question for sure, and a lot of parents really do avoid that issue until it's too late. So the whole idea really is build them first, and they will come. That's it. You're either in the buyer's market or seller's market, and if you follow kind of a new, deliberate, customized training regime, you're going to develop a champion fairly easily. It's not even that hard to develop a champion, and now every college is sending you letters asking you to come for free. Now, if you don't do that, if you do the old school methodology of rallying cross-court to each other, then go rally down the line and that sort of thing, if you don't do any mental, emotional training, now you're going to be in the seller's market where you're going to be actually making a YouTube video and you're begging every coach for the scraps of their leftover scholarship money, basically because you're an unproven entity. You have potential, but you're not proven. Well, as we all know with college coaches, their job is based on performance. They want proven entities. They don't want unproven. So how to attract a college scholarship is super important. That's why we have a whole book regarding that one topic. But I think the biggest thing right now is you really have to develop a champion in the right manner. You got to follow a deliberate plan. It has to be customized to their brain type and body type. You have to have an outline organizational blueprint. Those are key issues for sure. But if you look at like the upswing, if you do these things for 4 or 5 years, now your kid goes to college for free. They have a full-time tutor assigned to help them. They get all their classes first, so they're not taking pottery instead of calculus to graduate. They get front row seats in the football game. They get an apartment by the beach that the school pays for. They get a credit card for all their food. And then obviously when they graduate, they don't have to pay back student loans, all because the parents were smart and they were organized. So I recommend for the parents, you got to look into becoming an educated tennis parent. One of my biggest, pet peeves is these hobbyist tennis parents. They send their kids 1 or 2 lessons a week, and then they get mad when the kid is not a champion. Well, this is a big thing for parents out there. If you're a hobby